MREA presents the Rise Up podcast.
We want to pause and take a moment to thank our kilowatt sponsor, Connect DER. Connect DER is on a mission to provide quicker electrification for everyone. For over a decade, they have worked with utilities, solar installers, and electricians to develop meter socket adapters that connect homes across the nation to clean energy resources in a safe, affordable, streamlined way. Learn more about their products and work at connectder.com or visit their booth at the MREA's Industry Demo Day, Friday, June 21st.
Welcome back to the Rise Up podcast, and I am your host, Nick Hyla, and we are joined today by Justin Margolies. Justin is the Senior Product Developer at Slipstream. He specializes in research on emerging technologies and developing programs and solutions for residential heat pumps, which we're going to be talking about today. Justin's work aims to drive responsible market growth of heat pump technology for both space and water heating applications. He leverages his extensive experience in the clean energy sector to drive innovation in beneficial electrification research and solutions. He holds a master's degree in agriculture and applied economics from UW-Madison and a bachelor's of arts and international studies from Macalester College. Justin, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Great to be here. Thanks, Nick.
Good. Yeah, we're going to talk about heat pumps today. So I'm really excited. Emerging technologies. We're really happy to have you and for you to share your time with us. But before we get started, what does Slipstream do and what is the focus of your work?
Yeah, Slipstream is a mission-driven nonprofit. We have over 170 employees across the country. We're headquartered in Madison, Wisconsin, and have an office in Chicago. And our mission is to accelerate climate solutions for everyone. So we're really focused on combating climate change with a focus on equity. And we do a variety of work in research, workforce development, training and education of contractors, programs. We do some affordable financing solutions. And then we also aid with some energy policy and planning.
Good. And then what is your focus there primarily? What projects are you working on?
Yeah, so I'm on the research team. So in my role, I'm really looking to bridge the gap between research and scaled solutions in residential clean energy. And so I work on a variety of projects, including technology, field monitoring studies, market assessments, a bit more research on innovations and tools and software lately, and supporting contractor education. And really my focus of all my research and work is on residential heat pumps and residential electrification.
Perfect, because that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's jump right in here. What is heat pump technology and how does a heat pump work?
Yeah, so at a basic level, a heat pump leverages the refrigerant cycle, and a heat pump basically is just pumping heat from one place to another. So it's mechanically transferring heat from outside the home and moves it indoors to heat the home. But heat pumps have been around forever. A refrigerator and air conditioner, those are both one-way heat pumps. They've been around, for over 150 years, and heat pumps can draw as their source from either air, water, or the ground. And then they have different destinations. So they could be an air source or a ground source, and then it can deliver the heat in the other direction to air or water. And so when thinking about air source heat pumps, most often folks are referring to air, but there are a class of products that actually draw the heat from the air and then deliver it to the water, just like a heat pump water heater in the basement in many Midwest homes.
As you mentioned, heat pumps have been used in applications for 150 years. But now there's all this talk about cold climate heat pumps. So how has the technology changed in the last few years or last few decades?
Yeah, probably the biggest change has been in the advent of this inverter-driven variable speed compressor or variable capacity compressor. And so basically that allows the heat pump to adjust its capacity up or down to deliver the right amount of heat to the home. That has enabled a lot better performance of heat pumps and much better performance in cold temperatures.
So basically increased efficiency. So let's talk about kind of how heat pump efficiency is measured. What determines a heat pump to be a cold climate heat pump? Like, what are the measures of efficiency?
Yeah, all heat pumps definitely are not created equal. I think most folks are probably aware of the common efficiency metrics of air conditioners, the seasonal energy efficiency ratio, or the SEER. Or then on heat pumps, there's also the measurement of heating efficiency, which is the heating seasonal performance factor, or HSPF. But those aren't really reflective of the full spectrum of performance of heat pumps. And so really the easiest way to think about it is through coefficient of performance, which is a bit easier of an energy efficiency metric to understand, basically because it's just energy out over energy in. And so as the temperature changes, that may go down in an air source heat pump. It's a little harder to extract heat, but basically you can get, if you think of the heat pump like an ATM and you're putting $1 of energy in, you can get $2, $3, $4, $5 out of that heat pump. So it's essentially efficiency that's over 100% because it's just moving heat rather than creating heat.
So you have these three measures, the SEER, the HSPF, and now this coefficient of performance, which is COP. And COP is a measure of like how much energy you're getting out for the investment in. But that changes as it gets colder. So as I understand it, with a cold climate heat pump, as you approach this 0 degree Fahrenheit, they start to perform less efficient. Why is that? And what is kind of the measure of what a cold climate heat pump can do?
There's a few different definitions of a cold climate heat pump. Principally it refers to performance on the efficiency at those cold temperatures. So how good is it at, extracting that heat from the air efficiently? Is it able to still have an efficiency of, 2, a COP of 2 or above? And then the other factor is, can it actually draw enough heat at really cold temperatures? Or does it lose capacity to actually be able to have enough heat to heat the home? So the most common definition is probably from Energy Star, which has a metric of saying that a cold climate heat pump can have a 1.75 COP at 5 degrees. So it can get 1.75 units of energy in the home for every 1 unit of energy used to power that heat pump. And then it also states that heat pump must maintain at least 70% of the heating capacity of where that heat pump is rated at 47 degrees. So it refers to both the efficiency and that heating capacity at really low temperatures.
Yeah, and another thing about the cold climate heat pumps that I think that a lot of consumers have questions on is this kind of like defrost cycle. That like as if it's snowing outside, it's basically a compressor that's spinning outside. And so it has to do a thing where it sheds the frost or sheds the snow off of itself. And the colder it gets, the more it has to do that. Do you want to talk about what that process is and, how the heat pump operates that way?
Well, and since a heat pump is, really a two-way air conditioner, it's in the summer, it's able to cool the home. And so it uses that same feature of basically just reversing the direction of the heat pump. And it uses that function to then actually draw a little bit of heat to the outdoor unit to defrost it in those colder temperatures as that frost builds up. So it'll just switch over for a bit and defrost the heat pump. There's sometimes just a noise that's really, brief, but as it's switching directions in doing that defrost function.
All right, before we talk about the benefits of heat pumps, which there are some significant ones, maybe we should just dig in a little deeper on the types, because I know commonly people refer to, it's a mini split, and others are integrated. Do you want to talk about how, at least in a residential context, these heat pumps are kind of applied? What are some of the ways that they're configured?
Yeah, the mini split is a good call out. The mini split is really referring to the outdoor unit style of being, a smaller rectangular sort of suitcase style unit with the fan on the side, as opposed to what most of us are familiar in our traditional air conditioners of those big cube style outdoor units with the fan on top. But then there's so many different ways to configure a heat pump, and that flexibility is one of their actually major benefits, in that you can have indoor ductless heads, you can have short run ducts, or you can hook it up to your central ductwork. And then there's also some newer heat pump categories coming out in window heat pumps or package terminal heat pumps that are pretty good applications for multifamily buildings as well.
Yeah, and beyond even that, so you have these single through-wall units where it just, like you said, it has one heating and cooling head inside. It doesn't even touch the system. You have some that are directly integrated with the system. You have some newer stuff coming out that I don't even know about. It sounds like this is going to be pretty curious. But now we also have heat pump water heaters and heat pump clothes dryers. Any thoughts on those units, on their efficiency or what you're seeing out there, or how they work even?
I'm actually considering getting a heat pump clothes dryer myself. I'm in the early stages of thinking about those. I think more of those have been coming out, but they have a lot more efficiency. There are some differences in how they dry the clothes. Some folks mentioned they don't come out as steamy hot, but you take them out and once they're aired out, they are nice and dry. And then heat pump water heaters are really great, especially in the Midwest, because they're typically installed in basements here. And so they're drawing the heat from maybe a semi-conditioned basement or a conditioned basement. And then they have this benefit of in the summer having a dehumidification effect. And those can perform really efficiently as well. A lot of the heat pump water heaters have the coefficient of performance, the same metric of over 3. So they can be, over 300% efficient in heating the domestic hot water.
So we're starting to tee up the benefits here, of course. Why are we even talking about heat pumps? What is the benefit of, say, transitioning your electric or gas water heater or electric or gas central HVAC system to a heat pump?
Yeah, I guess, we talked a little bit about the flexibility of them in, so many different configurations and, how they can actually direct heat, especially if you use a ductless indoor head, which can be, as you mentioned, all these configurations can be combined with a system that hooks up with your central ductwork. So if you have an office upstairs, say, you can actually run an extra refrigerant line and have a ductless head that has like zonal control right where you are in your office if you work from home. In many applications, bring the benefit of convenience. So if a home is currently heated with propane, since they're powered by electricity, you won't need to spend time filling up propane tanks. Even if you keep your propane furnace as a backup in a dual fuel, you likely won't need that second fill up in the winter time. Or folks who have wood stoves, you're avoiding that need to split and haul wood, and then you're also just more protected from any fuel price changes, especially as I know many folks are aware of some of the price spikes that can happen with propane.
How about this, like cost effectiveness and efficiency over resistant like heat for electrical loads?
Probably one of the biggest benefits of heat pumps is their high efficiency and ability to take that $1 of energy going in and turn that into $3 or $4 worth of energy into your home. And so they're really efficient systems. Of course, it depends on like the fuel type that you're going from and at what temperatures, since that efficiency changes on exactly what those benefits are. But there are a lot of really great energy and cost savings to be had from operating the heat pump.
Yeah, so the flexibility, of course. And then that last point, it's interesting because it's really hard to visualize how this efficiency is made. And, because it's easy to visualize a resistance heat unit, like on a stove or any kind of, or like in a toaster. You send electricity through this metal and it just heats it up. But that uses a tremendous amount of electricity, whereas heat pumps don't have resistance heat. They are just compressing. The thing that makes it difficult to me, makes it sound like magic, is you're like, oh, in the winter, it's taking the heat from the outside air and bringing it in the house. And my question is, well, where the heck is the heat in the outside air? It's cold outside, but when that air is compressed by that heat pump, it heats up and it takes that heat and transfers it inside. And in some amazing way, it is incredibly efficient. Like you said, $1 of electricity in and that much heat out. So the efficiency and cost effectiveness is truly remarkable. But, and we're seeing a lot of interest, but what are the barriers to the adoption of this technology? Is there an educational barrier like I'm discussing right now, or are there, what else exists out there? Why aren't people doing more of this?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. The education and awareness among like both contractors and customers is probably one of the biggest barriers. As you mentioned, a lot of contractors are still stuck on some bad experiences with heat pumps in the 1990s before the advancement of this variable capacity compressor in this new generation of heat pumps. So, contractor unfamiliarity is a barrier that needs to be addressed. That may lead to a lot of contractors not recommending heat pumps or adding an extra charge to it. And there needs to be some awareness, across their business and commitment and support to the technology from the sales staff, to the person answering the phone and then the installation and service technicians. And then, education with those contractors on the installation quality is also really important. Load calculations are really important for heat pumps. I mean, they're very important in HVAC overall, but as we know, so many furnaces are way oversized in the Midwest, but there's a lot more negative effects of oversizing in heat pumps. Big challenge is dispelling the many myths, with contractors. And then with customers, there's a lot of differences in living with the heat pump as well. Some may see if they have an older furnace, the delivered air temperature, as you talked about, might be a little bit not quite as high because it's not, this big oversized furnace just blowing, really hot air and then cycling on and then cycling off and cycling on and cycling off. Instead, you get this, with the variable capacity heat pump, it's matching with the home needs. So it's lowering its speed and it's delivering the right amount of heat to the home at the right time.
Yeah. So you're saying, like, if the customer doesn't feel this blast of heat, they don't think that the heat pump is operating, right? What about cost? Is the upfront cost a barrier, or are they cost competitive? What are you seeing out there for pricing?
Yeah, the upfront and operational costs can be a barrier. Heat pumps are definitely more expensive, overall. Although there are some, the heat pumps have been around for a while with the single or two-stage compressors. Those are not that much more expensive, maybe a few $100s more, and those can be a good solution for some homes if they have a backup furnace and they're just using that heat pump size for cooling. We've found in some studies those systems can typically work really well down to 20 or 30 degrees. But then when you get with the advanced heat pumps, the incremental cost is a bit higher. So that's one barrier. And then operational costs, we do have fairly cheap natural gas in many parts of the Midwest. And so that equation, even with the heat pumps, a higher efficiency, that's where some utilities offer, rate designs that can help with that and have electric space heating rates or hybrid heating rates, because the heat pump's consuming more energy at times that aren't peak demand on the grid. And so there's a good justification for some lower rates on heat pumps. And that's one way that can be addressed.
So you talked a little bit about contractor training and education. And of course, there are some, we've seen just in the past even few years, the amount of contractors that are offering and installing heat pumps has gone up. So there are surely contractors out there that are leaning in and doing a great job, but more broadly, just making it more available. Consumer education, some upfront cost barriers potentially if the system costs more than, a natural gas furnace, say, a replacement. But heat pumps enjoy some growing level of incentive. Do you want to talk about the incentives that are out there and what a home or even a business could expect in incentives if they pursue a heat pump installation?
There's so many incentives that really help address the cost barrier. Probably one of the most universal ones is the federal tax credits for an air source heat pump, which is up to 30% of the cost, or up to $2,000 for an Energy Star cold climate heat pump here in the Midwest northern region of the US. And then utilities have energy efficiency programs, which will typically offer pretty good incentives on heat pump technology. Some of these programs are oriented around electrification and decarbonization goals, which they may even have higher incentives. And then we're seeing, of course, down the road here, as states get these programs set up for customers that are low to moderate income, they're going to see some pretty significant incentives for heat pumps through that program as well. And then some, whether it's local governments or utilities or other entities, there are some low cost financing solutions out there as well to really help address that first cost barrier.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about this formula funding from the Inflation Reduction Act, the HOMES program in particular. They have this two-part program. Both of them have some incentives for heat pumps. But as you said, every state is getting some amount of money, around $150 million for most of the Midwest states. It looks like up to $200 million. And those are directed at households that have an annual median income of like 150% of the area median or less. And yeah, so these programs, like you said, they'll be available through some state office to all these programs, and contractors and there's speaking of contractors, there's also training for contractors associated with that funding. So every state is going to increase their training for HVAC contractors to do this. So we should see more products, more contractors, more incentives. So it's a good time to be talking about heat pumps right now. And so we talked about this whole range of incentives. I want to just emphasize that typically the customer doesn't have to know about all those. The contractors usually help the customer figure all those out. So if you're a little confused by that, just pick a good contractor. But before, even just like incentives is one thing, but before somebody goes and purchases a heat pump, what should a consumer, do you think, know? What are the important things that someone should know before they go and install a heat pump?
Yeah, probably the first consideration is how well weatherized is your home. Really, before installing a heat pump, making sure that that home is well insulated and has air sealing is really important, because then you're lowering that overall, heating demand for the home, and you can right size that heat pump, so you can lower that incremental cost by going with a smaller heat pump and save on your energy, because you just don't need as much heat because that home is nice and tight. And then number two, really just planning ahead. And again, that weatherizing first is one important first consideration. As you mentioned, finding a quality contractor, there's a variety of ways to do that. Of course, word of mouth in your community. A lot of times utilities or maybe a local government or state may have a list of trade allies or registered heat pump contractors. So that's something to keep a lookout for. And then, of course, in selecting a contractor, it's really good to get multiple quotes. Some contractors have more experience with these, and there's definitely differences in the bids that come through, and looking at what heat pump they're recommending to you and asking them, do they have experience with cold climate heat pumps, and some basic questions like that. There are some really good buying guides out there. I know MREA has produced one, and I'm here in Wisconsin. Focus on Energy has a really great heat pump buying guide that really would apply to anybody in the Midwest, and includes like a list of questions to ask your contractor.
We'll link that in the podcast description for sure. That the Focus on Energy produced heat pump buyer's guide is excellent. And then, I think a note on the contractor selection is, if you work with a local contractor, it's much more likely that you'll get good service and maintenance on the product. Most of these products have a warranty. There's labor warranties. If you're buying one online and then doing it yourself, then that maintenance is up to you. And I know that many of the standard contractors, Carrier and Lennox and others, all have heat pumps available, so in their product line. So going with a local contractor, that's a good recommendation that you had there. And also want to just emphasize that, if you do efficiency first, then less cost on the capacity you need for heating and cooling, right? Because your house is performing better. So Justin, that's a really good recommendation. Let's talk about evolution of heat pumps. I've been hearing a few things. I don't know much about it. Maybe you do. I've heard about CO2 heat pumps. I've heard about these cascading heat pumps that are kind of coming out and looking more efficient. What are you seeing as far as the evolution of this technology that you think is promising?
Yeah, it's evolving really quickly, and we're just seeing more and more advancements, different, product forms and types coming to market in the US. Yeah, like CO2, as you're referring to the refrigerant, we're seeing a lot of refrigerant changes on the horizon, so that these heat pumps have refrigerants that are lower global warming potential. And then there's, just a variety of heat pump types, even on the ground source heat pumps. I know we haven't been talking too much about that today, but we're seeing more community geothermal efforts, particularly in the Northeast. But there are some projects that have happened in the Midwest, and, connecting this network of underground loops to a number of different buildings, which I think is a pretty exciting development. And then on just standard air source heat pumps, we're seeing, with just everything else, more automation, smart controls. One thing I'm pretty excited about is that there's just more connected diagnostics for good installs. And so some of these heat pumps actually have embedded diagnostics in themselves. And so I think we'll be seeing more and more applications of, using that data for benefiting contractors in commissioning systems, so they can make sure that the systems are configured properly, and it can help enable their checks for airflow and refrigerant charge, and then ongoing diagnostics of the system with remote access that the contractor can get access to and the customer can potentially have access to as well. So yeah, definitely lots of new developments. We talked about the window heat pumps as one. On heat pump water heaters, there's a new class. Those window heat pumps are 120 volt, by the way, too, right? So when we think about just being able to plug them in, and there is a new class of heat pump water heaters that are 120 volt. You can plug those in. They're not quite available in the upper Midwest yet, but we're doing some field research on those actually, just to ensure that those can actually perform well with the colder groundwater temperatures that we have.
A plug-in water heater. That is something else, like a low voltage and low amperage enough to be just like plugged into the regular outlet. That's great. And then, in the heat pump dryers, again, there's no resistance heating element. Same with the water heaters using heat pump technology. And those are even ventless. They don't even require any venting outside. They basically take the heat from the air around the unit and like dry your clothes with it. It's pretty impressive. One thing we didn't talk about is why there's like a whole bunch of people that never worked in HVAC like myself get excited about this stuff. One, well, I have a house, so of course I'm always looking for more energy efficient ways to do things. But also this idea of electrification, right? If we electrify our heating and cooling and just service loads in the house, then it's easier to clean up the electricity system and decarbonize it, and even do it on your own house with your own rooftop solar system. Do you want to talk just generally? I know Slipstream works on electrification. How you all think about electrification and the benefits and how heat pumps kind of fit in that equation?
A way of thinking that I find really helpful when thinking about electrification is the idea of beneficial electrification, which really, we think of that in a few ways. Think of electrification as beneficial if it's, at least positively impacting a couple criteria without negatively impacting any of them. And number one would be, saving consumers money in the long run, as we talked about. And then for low income customers, making sure that their energy burden is not increasing, so their operating costs are not going up. And then lowering environmental impact is a big one. And that's another benefit, with heat pumps being electrically powered. As the grid gets cleaner and cleaner and cleaner, every year that you're using that heat pump, it's emitting less and less emissions. And so that's a pretty great feature of heat pumps, that their emissions efficiency is actually going down over time. And then thinking about enabling grid management. And again, with the controls, like anything else, heat pumps are connected to the grid. And so there's possibilities of controlling the heat pumps and aligning that use at times when it's low cost energy and low emissions energy. And so that's sort of how we think about some of the benefits of electrification and guiding where some of these best opportunities for heat pumps are.
Well, this has been really interesting to me. Heat pumps have surely come a long way. There's a lot of consumer interests. There's new incentives, there's higher efficiency products, they're morphing into all of these different applications. I'm very curious about these plug-in water heaters and plug-in units. So many people buy plug-in air conditioning units, and they could buy a plug-in window heating and cooling unit soon. So that's really exciting. Justin, thanks for spending time with us. Any parting thoughts?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nick, for having me. I guess I would just say, heat pumps really are such a great opportunity. It's such a pleasure to be able to talk to you about them. It's advancing a lot. It's something that we're going to just see more and more of. I think I'll leave with one maybe fun fact that the Department of Energy a couple of years ago launched a cold climate heat pump challenge. So even increased the specifications of heat pumps further, that they charge manufacturers and challenge them to design products that are delivering a COP at 5 degrees of 2.4, so 240% efficient, essentially, at 5 degrees, with 100% heating capacity at that 5 degrees. So we're just seeing the products getting better and better. They're already working fantastic, and there's just so many opportunities for them to help homeowners live better, be more comfortable, and have a positive environmental impact.
Well, great way to end. Thanks so much for spending time with us, Justin, and we look forward to more.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Nick.
We would like to thank our Kilowatt sponsor, the Community Foundation of Central Wisconsin. The Community Foundation gives everyone the opportunity to make significant and lasting gifts to their community. Founded in 1982, the foundation is celebrating over 40 years. Learn more at cfcwi.org. And now a moment to thank Kilowatt sponsor AM 950. AM 950 strives to provide the best progressive radio programming available and has local programming that gives voices to all communities with shows like Native Roots Radio and Twin Cities Pride Amplified. For more information, visit am950radio.com.
The Rise Up Podcast, Season 5, Episode 8, Cold Climate Heat Pumps. Special thanks to our guest, Justin Margolies, hosted by Nick Hyla and produced by Kyle Galloway. Made possible with support from the Sally Mead Hands Foundation.